People seemed to really enjoy the last time I read a chapter from my book, Rude, so I thought I'd do it again, given that lockdown has just been extended for 3 weeks, and clearly we're all going to be bored pooless, wondering what to do or how to find a moment of solitude away from the family that we didn't realise we'd be spending quite this much time with in our whole lives. Anywho, last time we read a chapter, I'm not sure which one, this time we're going to read chapter 1, and chapter 1 from Rude, which, by the way, I did mention last time as well. I'm not trying to flog you because it's all sold out. So it's merely I'm trying to amuse you in a sort of fairy godmother with sinister overtones type way. Chapter 1 is what we're going to read. I am not a twat. Well, not a complete twat anyway. I appreciate many people think I'm about as big as a twat as it gets. Huge, as the Donald would say, a tremendous twat. Some people would go as far to say they can't stand me. They say, as in, I hate that bloody woman, which seems a bit extreme. Liberals say we must hope, not hate. But I think maybe this only applies to people who think the same things they think, because liberals tend to hate me more than most. And I get it. I really do. I have lots of opinions on lots of things that feel very personal to many people. The way they look, the way they feel, and how they should handle everything from kids to depression. I have views on the choices people make, like how to spend cash and how to vote, and even on arbitrary stuff, like the way people navigate Argos stores and stand open-mouthed as their goods descend from the heavens on a mad 1970s-style conveyor belt. It's all up for grabs in my world, and unlike most people who say things in the privacy of their own homes or to their mum or their mates or on Facebook to friends, I say things out loud to a few million people at a time. This month, in 1 week alone, 45 million people read or shared my tweets. That was not my design or plan, it just kind of happened. There was a space in the media market for a woman who spoke like a bloke but understood the mysteries of women, and I got paid to fill it, and then I kept being paid to fill it. I'd argue, if I were a complete twat, no one would want to work with me, ever. How would they if I was such an arse 100% of the time? It would be horrible. I'd be rude to the team and cruel to makeup ladies. Then again, I look at the meteoric rise of James Corden, the biggest cockwomble of the lot, and I see that supreme twattishness is not a barrier to success. I prefer to address the twat issue head on. When I'm booked for a piece of work, or a talk or a presentation, or the process of getting this book into your bag, for example, for which I'm eternally grateful to those who did buy this, by the way, I schedule the I am not a twat meeting. This is how my diary looked. I am not a twat, BBC Radio Festival. I am not a twat, talk radio. I am not a twat, political conference. I am not a twat, BBC Three documentary. I do other stuff in between these meetings, in case you were wondering. I don't spend my entire day schlepping to appointments proving that I'm not an utter spunk trumpet. That would be an exercise in futility. But it's a useful byproduct of the casual face-to-face in which people who I might have to work alongside get to meet me to see if they can. I am not a twat meetings are a way of getting people to see the real me, a person I call me. Once you've spent 10 years or so as a monster in people's minds, their expectations are pretty low. Most prepared to be insulted, I think. They expect me to come in, spit at the waiter, kick a fat kid, tell someone looking vaguely depressed to damn well pull themselves together, and punch a woman wearing leggings in the face for being so lazy. And I'll admit, most of those thoughts do go through my head. No woman should ever wear leggings as an outfit choice. They are the devil's clothes and look universally crap on everyone apart from Elle Macpherson. What people actually get is this strange little woman with a big nose and newly bleached blonde hair back then. A shit Ellen DeGeneres appears to be the most common description, or an overexcitable puppy dog, according to the Evening Standard. I was once booked to be a speaker at the annual radio festival hosted by the BBC. It's a fairly prestigious kind of event. Big names get invited to speak and important people attend. Sensible types, stalwarts of the airways, and random big names like Dermot O'Leary are booked to entertain or bemuse an audience of left-wing media types who look like they are sucking lemons in the rain at a funeral they didn't want to attend. Being the BBC equivalent of Ebola, I was only invited to talk thanks to the perfect storm of having my own radio show on LBC, the lady in charge knowing a bit about me working with Jeremy Vine, and the theme, disruption. From a BBC perspective, apparently, I'm about as disruptive as a heavy period at a swimming gala. I booked my I Am Not a Twat meeting with the brilliant woman who runs the event, whom I came to love for being hugely enthusiastic about everything. And sure enough, 10 minutes in, she said, "You know, you're nothing like I expected." It's a pretty standard reaction to me. And what it really means is, holy hell, you aren't an utter twat. I thought you were. It's a funny thing. When everyone thinks you're a complete twat, the only way their opinions can go is up. I would probably turn up at meetings and be a twat and get away with it. Maybe wipe my cutlery with antibacterial wipes or tell a crying kid to do one. Because when the starting bar is so low that President Erdogan would be considered highly tolerant, the world is your oyster. I want this book to be a kind of handbook for life. I want it to be about helping people to read this stuff and see that the whole I am not a twat lark is a course of action I want you to follow. I'm not suggesting for one moment you spend your life earning a reputation so terrible that when people actually meet you, they're pleasantly surprised. That's an insane and hugely inefficient strategy, like letting your child poop on the pavement and then having to go around and pick it all up before you can start your day. No one needs that in their lives. You can ensure you are not perceived as the biggest bastard or the biggest bitch in Britain and cut out the middleman. Now, not that I'm suggesting you should make it your aim to be nice. Christ on a bike, that's just offensive. Funny, sparky, rude, fabulous, queen, yes. Nice, no. My class 3 teacher, Sister Bede, used to say, never use the word nice. And I think she had a point. Who wants to be nice? It's one of the least exciting words in the English language. We've got clunge, frizzle, bamboozled, dearth, bombastic, rank. And the best some people can manage is nice. To be completely fair, Sister Bede was anything but nice herself. As with most religious individuals, she was reason enough to run from Jesus as fast as you could and keep going. Sister Bede had multiple other issues in addition to her intolerance of the word nice. A life of celibacy, wearing only navy blue with an unsightly head covering and dodgy beige shoes, had made her deeply bitter. She probably endured chronic chafing from excessive vaginal dryness as well. I can only imagine the flaking into those 30 denier tan tights with a reinforced gutting. Did I write this? I did. She made it her special calling to make my life hell. She used to make me stay over in lunch break and write lines with my right hand to improve me, even though I was left-handed. I'm pretty certain if she'd been a Catholic priest, things would have taken a more sinister turn. I'm guessing she did it all in the name of Jesus or such piffle. But I say to all nuns and priests, just because you do it in the name of Jesus doesn't make it right. If I stabbed a kitten in the eyeball in the name of Jesus, the RSPCA would still prosecute me for kitten cruelty, and rightly so. Despite accepting her advice to avoid the word nice, you could argue that if half the country already thinks you're a complete arsehole, you've taken things a bit too far. You can imagine what it's like when I rock up to give a talk somewhere in front of a few hundred people. The twat thing happens there too. People book me to give talks about my life, the economy, capitalism, the state of the nation, all sorts of stuff. One of my favourite talks is, "We're not all equal, some people are just not worth the effort." It's best performed at universities and other places where lefty liberalism is so pronounced that kids virtually have to murder a Jew on their way into the lecture theatre to prove their anti-Semitic credentials. Unless you have a Hezbollah flag waving out of your arse and an almost psychopathic aversion to Israeli mangoes, you can no longer get into the Russell Group universities I used to aspire to as a child. I'm an odd booking as a speaker. Typically it goes like this. Excitable Hopkins fan in position of administrative power is told to book a speaker and books me. Many other shy Hopkins supporters are secretly excited that there's a chance that there's a chance to see me, and then the venue has to be changed in order to get a bigger venue because of the numbers now anticipated. Some Hopkins haters get wind of the event and, failing to consider the option of just not turning up, decide to get outraged instead. A fat woman from HR decides that the outrage is her territory and waddles on in. It's payback time for every outspoken thing I've ever said about chubsters and the fact that I call fat people lazy, and because I wear a size 8 trouser and she can't, and she has bad highlights. A panellist or other minority individual says that they'll pull out if I'm allowed to speak or I'm given a platform, and the big boss has to make a call. Big audience, big publicity, and the potential that I'm not a twat versus keeping the chubsters and the women with issues happy. Most choose the latter, which is never the right decision, and my event gets cancelled. When I do manage to get past the HR chubster mafia, my audiences and I have a lovely time together. For many, this is genuinely the first time someone has stood in front of them and told them to say and ask whatever they like without thought or filter, and to be as blunt as they like. It's pretty darn therapeutic, actually. At Harrow, in front of 800 young men, future leaders of our country, all congregated into the Churchill debating room, I asked the assembled throng, hands up if you think I'm a complete cow. It usually takes a brave few or some sparky souls to kick them off, but once the feeling of confessional takes hold, it spreads faster than syphilis on a Saturday night in Scunthorpe. Soon, most of the room was there with their hands up, laughing. It's a glorious thing in many ways, being honest about someone to their face, a rarity in modern times. Only a few stalwart Hopkins lovers remained, arms at their sides. I love them for their loyalty, and perhaps because they'd already peeked behind the monster mask and seen a regular woman who actually finds herself pretty funny. I admire the boys at Harrow hugely. They've been gifted the best education that money can buy, and undoubtedly most of them know riches most of us can't even imagine. They have multiple homes, London apartments at 16, and accept it as standard that they have the access to the best of everything they might want. But the payoff is that here they work damn hard. Prep, 7 till 8 p.m, a full day of school. Supervised prep, 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. And 800 of them still turned out in full uniform for a non-compulsory talk at 9 p.m. at night just to hear me. I'm overwhelmed by the dedication of these young people to learning. It makes my heart thud at the hope for the future. Sometimes, after these talks, which are pretty noisy by virtue of the fact it's me versus the room, some of them come up and are genuinely cross with me. I came here because I hate you, and I expected to go on hating you, and now I'm confused. And I suppose that's the thing in life. If you're perceived as being an utter bellend and turn out not to be, then it can be a bit confusing, like finding out your kindly parish priest is a paedophile, or your local WI is actually a brothel for the over 60s, but in reverse. I reckon if you disagree with the things someone says, it's easier just to hate them, because it's better almost if they're a monster and you hate them, you can dismiss everything they say as monstrous and consign them to a box marked evil. If it subsequently turns out the monster is actually quite a pretty funny, likeable woman and one of your mates wants a selfie with her, what does that mean for their horrendous views? There's always a pivotal moment where my audiences realise that actually someone quite nice thinks these terrible things. and it makes them question what they thought they knew. What if other nice people think these terrible things? Which is why people at my talks are positively cross that I'm quite nice in person. They can't compute the fact that an actual human with a heart is able to sit on a sofa with a 24-stone woman and say to her face they would not employ her because she's too fat. Or look someone in the eye and tell them that they're too slow. Or inform full-time mums that actually they're just unemployed. We aren't used to anyone being that direct, especially not a woman. I'm no raging feminist with a desire to scrawl graffiti on my tiny tits, but I do think if I were a fat man with a regional accent, I'd be doing stand-up. Unfortunately, posh-sounding white women are not funny, and that's a fact. Even common-sounding fat ones can barely raise a smile. See Sarah Millican for detail. And that's what's given me a platform and a voice, being a woman with an opinion who never expected fans, so doesn't really try to please them. I've learned to accept that some people will not always like what I say or do, and they will now have the tools to be able to tell me so, though rarely to my face. Sadly, many lack the vocabulary to articulate what they actually want to say, so they're reduced to name-calling, mocking the size of my nose, which is large, or offering to rape me with a machete instead. Put people in cars and they act exactly the same way. In the heat of the moment, with little time to think, they shout, swear, flip the bird, or slam their hand onto the horn. Twitter is like that, like road rage, and it should not be taken personally or reported. I honestly believe Twitter needs to police itself. It should not be draining resources from actual police, who sometimes seem to spend more time dealing with hate crime online than in the streets. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, set up a £1.7 million hate crime hub staffed by a team of 5 just to police Twitter, particularly my Twitter. After any terrorist attack, it goes into overdrive, logging hate crimes and assisting the police with messaging against Islamophobia. It's a mad world where burglaries go unattended, but Twitter results in arrests. Back in the glory days of Twitter, before you could complain about threats of violence and Twitter was obliged to look as if it gave a toss, I grew used to the violence expressed online, hardened to it, I think. When people said they were going to set my car on fire with my kids in it, I knew they didn't mean it and weren't really going to come and do that. What they meant was stop saying Tyler is a terrible name. Stop laughing at the fact that my destiny has her fucking future all mapped out, or my Bella is actually shit ugly. If your son or daughter has any of those names, my criticisms sound personal. So I can see why people feel the need to be personal back. It makes sense. I've had the same 6 friends or so for 20 years. There are new additions, of course, and plenty of notable others, but my main fallback family and friends have all lived through much bigger ticket items than my being a bit well known or notorious. My girls have stood with me when I've made far bigger mistakes than the odd ill-worded tweet, like my first marriage, for example. They all knew it wouldn't last, but they all turned up to the wedding and were kind and agreed to be there for me if it went spectacularly to hell in a handcart, which it did, and they were. Once people suss out I'm less of a cow than they actually thought I was, they feel the need to rationalise it somehow. We're all programmed to want an explanation for something, as if trying to explain away the twat nice person gulf is no different. The twat nice person gulf is not a phenomenon unique to me. When you think about it, it occurs in other areas of life as well. When you meet your ex-husband's new girlfriend, for example, you'll have decided in advance that you hate her, and rightfully so. No one ever likes their ex-husband's new girlfriend, particularly if she's the reason you're no longer married. But it can turn out that she's actually rather nice, and then you have to make that journey from the twat nice person gulf that people have to make with me. My parents regularly come across this gulf. They're not racists, but they were born in a time and lived in a place where You weren't local unless you lived there in the same house as your grandfather grew up in and then have inherited the beef cattle farm. That's just how it works. He's foreign, but he's actually rather good, is a direct quote from her mother about her new optician, who comes all the way from remote Essex. Foreign, but good. This is the foreign, actually quite capable Gulf. These are popular explanations for the inexplicable notion that I might not be a complete arsehole. Right, I'm going to try that again because that was really shocking, reading like a dyslexic in the dark. These are the popular explanations for the inexplicable notion that I might not be a complete arsehole. I used to hate the old you, as if somehow it was me that changed, not their opinion. I suppose you have to be tough to withstand all the hate, as if I'm to blame for making myself into a monster, casually forgetting that they were the ones doing the hating until 10 minutes ago. If you're married, you can't be all that bad, as if my husband was a character witness at a murder investigation. Maybe you were edited to look like a cow. This kind of logic follows the idea that the good bits of me being nice and human were left on the edit room floor, and that all that was used was spliced footage of me being an utter git to the people I was sharing a space with. Rule number 1 of TV land: never blame the edit. Only complete narcissists blame the edit. People determined that the watching public shall see them as saccharine sweet, or at least as vaguely intelligent at all times, which frankly isn't true for 95% of the population. A third of the British public has an IQ below 85. That's the sort of intelligence where you have to be introduced to your own reflection in a mirror, or taught how to use Velcro, or where to put a toothbrush, even though the clue is in the name. The edit suite can only edit what you've said. Can't put words into your mouth, and the media will tell it as they find it, or as the audience will believe it to be true. If you agree to be filmed for something, you sign off on the whole package, not just the carefully crafted side of you your agent would prefer the world to see. I tend to think if you don't like what's being said about you, you should get your face out of the media and on with your life. When people ask how I handle all the grief I get online, I tell them it was my decision. I signed up for The Apprentice. I pursued a career in the media, and if I don't like it, I can sod off and sit on my sofa. It's a truly modern curiosity. The famous types are only too happy to earn a £2 million advertising contract with L'Oreal because they're a well-known face. But then they choose to take legal action against the media when they feel their privacy has been violated, or when a story emerges that has not been curated for public consumption. Phil Schofield. I added that. It's more current than this book. Gary Lineker is a perfect case in point. Happy to coin it in as the Walker's Crisps salesman and to gob off about migrants and other subjects that fits his liberal agenda, but one teeny-weeny story in The Sun alleging a few tax naughties and the lawyers descend. These celebs are the dodgy estate agents of their own lives, happy to display the well-manicured exterior that looks good in pictures, and hiding the structure that reveals their house was built next to Chernobyl and is suffering from chronic damp and subsidence. Of course we all do that to some extent. What is makeup, if not concealer, of the cracks in our face we prefer not to show to our workmates? Unless you're buying hair dye, and then it's probably okay. Oh, no one trusts, I just missed a whole paragraph. No one trusts estate agents, and you shouldn't trust famous faces either. Unless you're buying hair dye, then it's probably okay. Being able to understand that if you put yourself out there, not everybody will like what they see is fundamental to survival. Personally, I think it should be taught in schools. It's the same message I gave to my friend's daughter when she cried because someone called her fat when she posed in her new dress. If you don't like what people might call you, don't pose in a tiny dress on social media. When you were 11, how stupid do you have to be? Despite all the cotton wool we wrap our kids in these days, no one is a loser. Everyone gets an A star just for showing up, and the school counsellor is as important as your math teacher. We have singularly failed to teach them that not everyone will like everything they do. Some people will hate it. And if you don't want to hear the bad stuff, don't revel in the good stuff. Don't be a naff celebrity. Don't enjoy making 5 figures out of a shampoo and then complain when your privacy is invaded on holiday. These things are symbiotic. Suck it up. In November 2017, I completed the first Stand Strong school tour to try to embed some resilience into our young people. It was a programme specifically designed to help kids form their own opinions and deal with the tough stuff in life. It's important kids are given space to think, to talk a lot, and to try to shout out if they're bullied or afraid. But we singularly fail to teach them how to deal with the turbulence of life. The person who ignores you or calls you fat online or hangs or gangs up with a group on social media to humiliate you or cut you out. How to handle being rejected from the chat group or the party list. How to sit alone and feel happy with yourself. How to take a barrage of criticism and find lines you'll think of later and wish you'd been quick enough to say or brave enough to say at the time. I school my children on these things on a daily basis. They tell me their worries or what some nasty piece of work has said, and I suggest the response I would have given. And that is usually embrace it. Embrace the hate and anger. Imagine swallowing it like chocolate. Then breathe and respond with something that puts you on the higher ground. Make like a processing factory for insults. You take them in, you absorb them without being contaminated by them, and then you recycle them as triumphantly as you can as more power to your own elbow. I imagine myself as a swimmer diving into a pool, hands above my head, pointed towards the water, and then diving into the criticism, watching it slip past my sides. I keep moving forwards and I leave them all behind. Or an arrow whistling through the air with the wind at my sides, just about catching the odd words of all the shouty people who are cross as I streak past. It's all a game of power. You have it, you hold on to it, and don't let them take it from you. I think the game goes on in our daily lives all the time, especially if you're a woman. A friend who notices you've lost weight might say, "Strange, we always seem to lose it from the places we don't want," or no one comments on your new hairstyle or your news. Or perhaps you think you look pretty good that day, but no one comments on your dress, or perhaps someone says something snarky instead of something kind. A whole world of rejections and small slights which can add up to making a rubbish day feel super rubbish. You are in control of all of this. You do look good. Your hair does look nice. It's fantastic that your son or daughter has done well and that you're proud of them. You do you. My mother and I have a saying which is now employed extensively throughout my private life, outside of work: be positive or piss off. My mother also used to say, if you haven't got anything positive to say, say nothing at all. I clearly didn't heed that advice too much as a kid. And frankly, when my father was asking what happened to the other 5% when I scored 95% for my school exams, neither did he. So inside my little bubble of family and friends, I've taken it up a notch. Be positive or piss off is not about avoiding honesty. If someone needs honesty in their life, they will get it. But day to day, on the periphery of things that don't matter all that much but might make someone feel stronger or better about themselves, I'm right there. If I feel you're hurting, I'll be right there by your side. It doesn't matter if you've loved me, hated me, or even voted against publishing this book, as some did inside the publishing agency. Your happiness still matters to me more than this book, or words on a page, or what people might say. Let them talk. Shaming is something done to you. You can reject it. Yes, I had sex in a field. It felt great. Are you jealous? I urge it on others. Own you. If you look good, feel good. If you feel a bit rubbish, tell someone and ask them to help you make you feel better. And if someone wants to put you down or chip away at you or steal some of your happiness, ask them not to. Yes, I've lost weight. And no, I don't mind where it comes off. I feel great. Yes, I'm proud of my son. He's worked really hard for everything he's achieved. If you find yourself in a scorpion's nest of sisters more toxic than a forgotten Tampax, earn points by seeing how many of them fail to comment on how brilliant you look, or how nice it is that you have your home or your family or your pyjamas to look forward to later. The Queen Scorpion might be your boss, but you are the Queen of Sass, and frankly, that's all that matters. This is my kind of feminism, making strong women feel more self-assured. I think this is the kind of feminism we need in schools as well. Less time spent looking outwards for social slights or calling out perceived inequality or fighting to be heard or reporting sexism on portals such as Everyday Feminism, which is essentially a cave where mad women shout with each other to no collective purpose. And more time building your inner resolve, a core of resilience like muscle, so that you are able to fight back when you need to, helping you to stand strong in the face of it all, despite the fact your boiler is just broken down, one of the kids has just been excluded, or you've put on 2 stone and feel like a fat, frumpy fool. Yes, my nose is big. Well done for spotting that. Yes, I do look like a horse. Paddy Power Racing sponsored my university degree. A shit Ellen DeGeneres? I was hoping for hot lesbian bookseller, but I guess I'll just have to make do. My family all hate me. Fair play, but I buy their Christmas presents, so that's going to be disappointing for them. You wouldn't have sex with me if someone paid you. I'm not... You wouldn't have sex with me if someone paid you. I'm not certain that's how prostitution works, but you'd know better than me. Accept, swallow, take the power from their wrath. Make like an arrow and keep moving forwards. Smile, breathe in, breathe out, and watch your breath rise up and now follow it. Even better, stick your shoulders back, put your head up, and remember that the people who love you most matter most of all, and they probably think you're fantastic. Go you.